Hope everybody's well. I hope you're all doing okay and everything's fine with you and the world's treating you well and the mortgage world is treating you well, because a lot's been going on, of course, in the last week or so. So I want to give you a couple of topics. So I want to pick up on inflation to start with. Then I want to pick up on non-DOMs, because everybody's talking about non-DOMs. So I want to talk about why it's really important, or why it's not really. And then we're going to finish off on the future is AR, not VR. So that's another little acronym there. All acronyms, isn't it? Non-DOMs, VRs, ARs. Anyway, enough of that. Okay, let's talk about inflation to kick off with, shall we? Let's get into inflation, because as you know, of course, inflation and mortgage advisors goes well together because it affects our business. So let me go over to a new whiteboard I've got today. I've actually got a new angle here in the studio, which is just this whiteboard here allows me to present slightly differently as well. So what I want to talk about now, just quickly for you, quick update for you, is taming inflation is what we're talking about here. Taming the tiger of inflation, which is what the central banks are looking to try and do at the moment. Now, as you know, of course, inflation is starting to rise. I don't need to tell you that. And JP Morgan, so these are big hitters, there's smart people work over there. They've been forecasting that by the end of 2022, they reckon the Bank of England are going to lift rates to about 1.75%, 1.75% by the end of 2022, which isn't that far away, actually, only about 7 or 8 months. Now, they've already increased rates over the last few months. Every month they've been increasing rates. And this is quite a huge thing, really. This volatility of increasing rates hasn't happened for many years, I think since 97 or something ridiculous like that. But we know why, because inflation's starting to rise. Again, the smart people at JP Morgan have kind of predicted, and how can you predict, that CPI is going to rise to about 9% by the end of 2022. Now, the Office of Budget Responsibility, the UK's stats people, have also said the same thing. So they've got their ways. That's quite incredible, actually. That's almost 10% inflation. Never seen that for so many years. So you can see why interest rates, of course, are starting to go up, because what we're doing is we're tightening monetary policy. If you tighten monetary policy, it stifles growth. It can obviously affect your growth as an economy, but it should stifle the inflation that's there. We'll see about that one. Of course, it will affect interest rates. As you can appreciate, of course, Bank of England base rate, typical interest rates tend to be 2-3% more than that. So interest rates will trickle upwards. The long-term fixes are already starting on their way upwards. But here's the interesting thing, which affects your studies as well. Over in the US, the Fed, I love the Fed, don't you? Wish our Bank of England was called the Fed. Sounds like FBI, doesn't it? The Fed, The Fed have decided to do quantitative tightening. Have you heard that phrase before? Quantitative easing we've come across before. Quantitative tightening. This one. Let's get the right spelling there for a Monday morning for you. Quantitative tightening. So what happens over there is that they've been buying bonds, their Fed's been buying bonds like our Bank of England for years, since the crash in 2009, or 2008 was the crash. And they're now sitting on, wait for this, it's a huge amount of money, just check I got the right figure for you, 9 trillion. The Fed's sitting on $9 trillion. That's enormous sum of money. This is more than you can imagine. And they're going to start selling them off. They're going to start selling those bonds into the market. It's called quantitative tightening. They're going to reduce that. How much is up to them? Probably a couple of $100 billion on a monthly basis to get rid of any that sort of figure. It's a large amount of money. As you can appreciate, the numbers are quite extreme, aren't they? So that's the stifling growth monetary policy that they're looking to achieve. Whether it will work or not, I don't really know. Anyway, that's an update for you on inflation. Let's go on to another topic now. Let's get on to a bigger topic now for us. Let's get on to the non-DOMs, shall we? And why does it matter? Let's go over to this whiteboard for this one, shall we? Non-DOMs, and why does it matter? Now, you've probably read about this. If you haven't read about this, it's because you've been hiding under a boulder. Because Rishi Sunak, our Chancellor of the Exchequer, has been caught up into this non-DOM scenario. So I want to talk about non-doms. So and why does it matter? Why matter is the question really. Because as a mortgage advisor, you're probably thinking to yourself, well, why, Paul, does it matter? What does a non-dom really mean to us? Let's give you an update what it all is, first of all. Rishi Sunak, of course, is the Chancellor of the Exchequer, and his missus, his wife, Akshata, she is mega rich, and that's just the way it is. Let's not judge that. And she has non-dom status, which means that she doesn't pay tax on her foreign income or foreign assets. And Rishi thought he'd keep this quiet, so that was the whole issue behind it. So what is a non-dom then? Well, a non-dom is somebody, there you go, who is resident in the UK, so they're a UK resident, so they're living here. In fact, Ashata and Rishi live at number 11, of course, Downing Street, so she's a resident here in the UK. And it's all legitimate, by the way. This is legal and legitimate non-doms. It was created from the Napoleonic Wars, if you ever wanted to know that one. The Napoleonic Wars back in the early 19th century, because by then, of course, we created income tax and we wanted all the money we could to fight Napoleon. And there was a lot of people in the UK who had earnings from abroad. They didn't want taxing, you see. So, of course, they controlled Parliament then, and they made up this law, which is still with us today. And what it means is anybody who's living here in the UK, so they're permanently resident in the UK, but they have a domicile, in other words, they were born abroad or their father was born abroad. And they therefore claim that person's domicile or their own domicile. Now, Akshata was born and bred in India, and she still has an Indian passport and Indian nationality, but she's living here in the UK, which she's perfectly entitled to do. Now, as a result of that, she can claim non-dom status, which means that any earnings from abroad are not taxed. So there's no UK tax. That's the first one. Now, for Akshata, she happens to have quite a bit of an ownership in her dad's company. Now, her pops set up a firm, an IT company called Infosys, way back, and it's a huge concern. It's worth huge amounts of money, and she owns 1% of the shares in that firm, which is great. But just to give you the numbers, she owns 1% of the shares, so she actually owns £701 million worth of shares of her dad's company. Now, let's not judge all of that, but she does, and it pays dividends. Now, the dividends it pays is approximately 11 million, which is not a bad return, really. And she doesn't pay UK tax on that. That's the point. That's the issue that everyone's going on about. Now, if she did, she'd have to pay dividend tax of 38 or 30%, because she's an additional rate taxpayer, of course. She'd have to pay quite a lot of dividend tax on that, almost £2 million. And but she's chose not to. Perfectly legitimate, perfectly legal to do so. Now, the other thing about earnings is that any assets, there you go, which they have abroad, there's no inheritance tax to pay on that. She'll have to pay inheritance tax on assets she owns within the UK, but any assets abroad, she doesn't have to pay any tax on. So obviously shares are an asset, property's an asset. So being a non-dom's a pretty cool thing if you have the option to do so. And it's quite interesting actually, quite a lot of people are actually non-dom. The people that you know, the guy that used to head up Lloyd's, Antonio Osorio from Lloyd's, he was a non-dom. And Mark Carney, apparently the ex-Bank of England head dude, he was non-dom as well because he was a Canadian resident as well. And of course Roman Abramovich is a non-dom, but we won't talk about him because he's doing all sorts of things at the moment with Russia and etc. So non-doms are pretty prevalent. The only other way of getting around it is that if somebody lives in the UK for 15 of the last 20 years, here you go, 15 of the last 20 years, then what happens there is they can't claim non-dom status. We make them deemed UK domicile. You often hear the word deemed domicile, don't you? So that's one way. The rules were changed back in 2014 to bring that in. So, but most of these people don't live here for 15 out of the last 20 years. So that's non-dom. So what's the issue? Why is this really important? Well, the fact is that Akshata, for bless her soul, has agreed to pay the tax. She's actually said, look, I didn't realise this was going to kick up such a storm. I don't want this to affect my husband's career, so I'll pay the tax. So bless her, she's done that, but she didn't need to. That's the point. Now Rishi, of course, is in a bit more of a pickle here, and this is why it really matters, more for the political side of things. Now Rishi did declare this back in 2019, I think, and expected everyone to realise this situation, but he didn't appreciate, of course, the power of the British press, and they like to grab things, don't they, and shake things and shake people up. So they're saying that he's not really had a lot of political judgment on this. He's not to express good judgment, but you can decide that yourselves. So he's in a bit of a pickle, and he's kind of like trying to get it published again, or get some information to sort of show the British people that he did know. But I don't think Rishi helps himself really. I mean, he walks around in 300 quid trainers, doesn't he, apparently, which is up to Commons project trainers he wears, which I think you're trying to appeal to the normal people. You shouldn't be wearing those things. And the other one that tickled me, he was asked about the price of bread, and because that's what politicians are asked, aren't they? What's the price of bread at Aldi? And he said, well, I don't know. He said, we have several types of bread in our household. And that's just not right, is it? Of course, Boris, he gets away with all these things because Boris is Boris. Anyway, that's politics. So why does it matter? Well, it's purely politics. For you as a mortgage advisor, it doesn't really matter, unless, of course, you're dealing with very high net worth clients, and you probably won't because they don't need mortgages, do they? But it matters because it's in the CMAT 1 syllabus, so that's a bit of an update for you on non-DOMs. Boris, he just gets away with all these things as well, doesn't he? So that's non-DOM update for you. Hope they found that useful. Bye. There you go. All right, enough of that. Let's flick over then, and we'll head over to our final topic of today, just to give you a bit of an insight into the final topic. Non-DOM, bit of tax there, bit of inflation. Let's talk about advisors now and how you're going to operate moving forward, because as you know, we have to keep our eyes glued to the future. Because as mortgage advisors, many of us are self-employed, we run our own businesses, we're very worried about competition, particularly from tech taking over our jobs, and justifiably we should be concerned about that. But I read a lovely article at the weekend about the future of communicating via tech. And the article that I'm going to put together on this one is that the future is not virtual reality. A lot of people think it's virtual reality, don't they? You probably read about the metaverse. Zuckerberg at Facebook has turned his company, called it Meta now. He's creating the metaverse, and you've got all these sort of lands they're creating on the internet. People are buying real estate on this metaverse. It's like a second world almost, isn't it? That's not where it's at. So when you hear people talk about virtual reality being the future of giving mortgage advice, that's not where it's at. That will be a world, and gamers, etc., will love all of that, and that's where they'll stay. But for us as mortgage advisors, the future is AR, or augmented reality. Now, a couple of things to share with you what augmented reality is. Now, way back, was it 2012, 13, something like that, we had a game came out on the phone. I think it was Sony or somebody did it, or PlayStation, where you could use your phone with its camera and you could spot things around you, so you could see the real world on the camera. But little cartoon characters would suddenly appear. Pokemon, I think it was, wasn't it, or something? And my children loved it at the time. That's augmented reality. If you're a Disney fan and you remember the original Mary Poppins or Bedknobs and Broomsticks, back in the 60s, those films, they had like a film, but they had cartoon characters who came into the film, who formed part of it. That's augmented reality. Augmented reality is where you see the real thing in front of you, but things appear embedded within the real situation that you're in. And that's where it's going. And a couple of the big firms now, Apple, who of course are very good at creating products that are gorgeous, they never create something that is new. They always wait till the market establishes itself. Like the iPhone, for example, there were smartphones around. I mean, Blackberries were ubiquitous, weren't they? The MP3 player, the iPod they created. MP3s have been around for years before, but they created it when the market was ready for it. Now they've been creating their own glasses. Now, these glasses are, not dissimilar to the glasses I'm wearing now. They're just thicker, sunglassy type. They're not those great big geeky things that virtual reality works in. Augmented reality is very different. So picture the scene. You have decided to talk to your customer, and she lives in Newcastle and you're based down in Exeter. So you decided to get on the phone and do your mortgage work on the phone. So you both are using your mobile phones, which is fine. So audio works well, and many of us do that. But some of you, of course, like to use the video. So you're using the video on your phone, and your customer, she's using the video on her phone, so she can see in a 3-inch screen your face, and you're chatting, and you've got a PC in front of you to make it all proper, and you've got a proper studio and everything. But your client can see you on a screen that big. So they can see you talking and chatting. Or they might have a tablet, or they might be on a PC, but most people tend to use portable stuff, don't they? Now, this is what happens. Your client buys a pair of glasses, and they won't be expensive. She puts the glasses on, which are Bluetoothed to her phone, and suddenly you appear in her dining room, sitting on the table opposite. Your image, your augmented reality image, appears in her front room. Now, obviously, it'd be a bit grainy to start with, but as tech gets better, it'll get better and better. So, she'll see you in her front room. So her front room's there, but you're there as well. You're there. That's augmented reality, and it's almost there. In its form where people will buy these things and use them, because it will be done via the smartphone. You see. Now, I don't know about yourself, but I can see that really working. So look at the uses. You've got advisors talking to clients, of course, anywhere in the world, with you actually sitting in their front room. It's still their front room. They're not in some weird metaverse, You're in their front room and you're there. And if they take their glasses off, they can't see you. If they put their glasses back on again, they can see you. So that's the way it's going. So you've got advisors talking to clients. BDMs, for example, will be able to rock up a bunch of advisors in their office and talk to them about products and things like that. A coach can be sitting next to you while she's coaching you with these things as well. I'm a trainer, I can go into a boardroom or training room and I can facilitate a group of people because I'm there in the group. I can actually see them and they can see me, but we're not in some weird virtual reality room. You could go and present to a new client in their boardroom. There's so many options for augmented reality, and that's the future. So if somebody says to you, the future of mortgage management is virtual reality, nonsense. The future is augmented reality. So watch this space. It's coming soon. You need to plan for this. You need to make this happen now. To think about it. It's worth thinking this through because it will change the way you operate. Hope that's been useful. Bye. Great. Let's wrap up, shall we? Let's wrap up our live stream today. So what's been happening in Tivoli Studios? Well, we've been delivering training and on CMAPs and mortgages and all sorts of things over the last week or so. We've got a new bootcamp starting at the beginning of May. We've got some new products coming in, equity release coming in. So lots happening here. So we'll share those with you as well. Next Monday happens to be Easter Monday. So if you live here in the UK, you'll be celebrating Easter Monday. So it'd be rude for me to do a live stream on Easter Monday because most of you would be tucking into roast lamb, won't you? Or whatever you like to eat these days. So we won't be here next week. We'll be here the following week anyway. So it's Easter coming up. It's a lovely break actually, Easter, because the weather's better, isn't it? You walk out in your gardens and stuff like that. So we'll be doing the same as well. Anyway, hope you have a great week. Paul Archer, contact me via YouTube or LinkedIn or email. Happy to talk to you about things that you want to talk about. Other than that, have a great week, guys, and I'll catch you next week. Bye for now.